Welcome back, everybody. I am still alive. This is me being angry about the Wheel of Time again, right? Yes, we're finally back with Winter's Heart. I'm back from Athens since last night. I was smart and took my camera, and then I did not record a single thing, which, yeah, I'm not so smart, right? Anyway, I finally restarted Winter's Heart this morning. I've read a lot of it already, and I think we'll just have a bit of a talk about parts of that. If my voice is still brutalized, I really, really, really hope it's only because of me singing along to heavy metal bands and stuff and nothing else. But we will never, well, maybe we'll know if I do like more COVID tests and crap in the coming days. We will see. Anyway, this is me talking about books, nothing else, right? Well, cheers and all. All right, so let's talk about Prologue and first 6 chapters of Winter's Heart, book 9, I think. Of the Wheel of Time, maybe book 8. I'm done with this crap at this point. I don't know. It's definitely book 9. So let's see where this will lead. We have a prologue, and we have some Perrin chapters, and we have some Fail and Fail chapters, basically. We also obviously have the prologue that goes about all kinds of other stuff. And this makes a lot of sense, right? Well, let's go through the last events of Path of Daggers. And one of the final things there was the abduction of Fail by the Shadow Aiel. Damn. There's too many I's in this fucking book, right? There's the Aes Sedai, the Aiel, there is Fail, there's the Shadow. I don't know. Seems that's like maybe Robert Jordan's favorite diphthong. Anyway, not my exact point. So that was like sort of the last big cliffhanger is what happens with Fail and the gang. So it kind of makes sense that we start with this one here, right? Just, plain sense. So basically, after the prologue, we'll talk about the prologue in a minute. What we get is obviously Perrin wandering back home riding back home after trying to after convincing Masima to come with him to meet Rand. He comes home to his army camp and is presented with the effects of that. And yeah. Then we see some struggle because there's obviously some inter-party shift, infighting and crap like that. There is more intriguing from Berlin because, of course, there is Berlin. I will talk about that in a minute. And we see how his, attempts and decisions on what to do, which at the end of the day is he decides to follow his wife, and Masima decides to come with him, and so everyone is moving south instead of east where they should go. This is the big momentous decision that is made here by Perrin for his love, which, fine, makes sense, I guess. We also obviously get Fail's perspective of being mistreated by Shadow, being faced with a very volatile political situation in the Shadow camp, which is, their personal servants for Savannah now, and everyone else is trying to enlist more gays under the name of Magdan, Alejandra, Queen of Gillidan, and Fail as spies, thieves, or whatever in order to, get out of there. Because obviously there's a shit ton of intrigue in the bad guys' camp. There always is, always will be, because bad people, as we know, are all egotistical maniacs and thus always about finding even more for themselves. They can't ever really work together because they're bad guys. We already knew that, right? I guess so. Okay, so that's the overall plot line of these couple of chapters. There is chapter 1, leaving the prophet, and all the way up to chapter 6, which is The Scent of Madness. The prologue, however, switches, like, as we always do, from like a couple of different perspectives, so we see what's going on and get the whole thing set. And I'll just point out that I do like the way Robert Jordan starts all of his actual books after the prologues, when he starts with the whole, like, ages, the Wheel of Time age thing, and then he goes with that wind starting out somewhere and going through all these different current situations as, short flashbacks, summaries of what happened before and whatnot go. I do like that one. That's just really cool, and the fact that he's keeping it from book to book is really nice. The way he has started to do the, like, here are all the different rumors kind of thing at the end, I hope this will continue as well, is also pretty cool. There is obviously something to it that I don't like, but we'll talk about it if he still does the same dumb thing at the that I don't like about it at the end of this book, which will be Thursday, I guess. I'll be done with this. So yeah, let's look at the prologue for a bit. We have four major perspectives in book 4 in the prologue. That is, what's going down in the White Tower with our gang that is discovering Black Aja. Remember, there was like sort of that thought that one of them might be Black Aja with those people down in the cellar with the Oath Rod at the end of the last book. So now we see where this continues. Then we jump over to Elaine and all her troubles in Camelin. Have a quick one, check in on what Rand is doing, and then have a final one with, first we go to, what's her name? Tovanne, the Red Aja sister who was sent to destroy the Black Tower and got captured and bonded, raped by Logain Ablar. We'll see where that is going. That's sort of like our 4 points in, Rand, who's jumping around because he's setting out to finally go and clean up or cleanse the one, citing the male half of the true source, so people don't get mad all the time, which, the madness thing, it's a problem. But yeah. So that's our 4 jumps. And yeah. As plot goes so far, I have to say once again, I'm fairly happy with what is going down. Not all of it, but fairly happy with it. I've read worse books by Robert Jordan so far. The prologue is also doing sort of well. We'll have to talk about the really long, like, becoming magical sisters thing with Avienda and Elaine in a second, but we go like through this like chronologically, I guess. So we start out with the torture stuff downstairs in the White Tower, where they have like the one Aes Sedai, I forgot her name because who fucking cares? Talene, maybe? Something like that. Have her on some weird torture device, the chair of pain, whatever. Torture her until she actually breaks down and forswears her Black Aja vows, takes the new oaths, which are the old oaths, and then has to, answer everything and so forth. And I think the main issue I have with this, there's a bunch of issues with it, but the main issue I have with it is, once again, that yes, torture is absolutely justified within these books. Apparently it's fine. It also apparently works with, enough pain and whatnot, people just give in, which I think is a problem. Because, if you want to tackle that issue, and because for whatever reasons you feel like, yeah, torture is fine, I do disagree. But you could use all kinds of weird kind of magic to break people. And by which I mean, like, actually make sure people speak the truth around it. Don't, because what happens here is they torture her with, like, yes, psychological pain and whatnot, but they torture her with pain until she decides to give in. It's nothing like, compulsion or whatever they're not allowed to use that, which makes a lot of sense, but it's still, the idea is that torture is not only okay, because it justifies, if the means, if the end justifies the means, torture is not only okay, but it is also successful. And I don't like that. Just plain and simple, I think it's problematic that you have that in there. But it fits into a lot of what we get from the White Tower, because the other aspect is that they have to do it in secret, because as we know, the rules of the White Tower forbid these kind of things. So it takes, and this is what we spoke about before, right? It's that Robert Jordan is not exactly a fan of a well-organized, more or less democratic society, because the White Tower is, at the end of the day, what we might call representative democracy. We have the sitters for each Aja, and they meet in the council, they decide and whatnot. They have raised an Amerlin seat, who is, I guess, what you might call a president, but and has a lot of power, but only that much. There's checks and balances, and Robert Jordan does not believe in checks and balances. He believes in benevolent tyrants. And this, I think, is the ridiculous bit, because what we see at the end of the day is the Amerlin seat, as long as it was Siuan Sanche, was right, and she did all the right things. And she was hampered and dragged down by democracy, like the Hall. The next one we have is Elida, who is a bad Amerlin. Not because her motives are bad, but because she's stupid and prideful and all kinds of other things. And for whatever reason, even though we get told all the time that the Hall is holding her back and whatnot, that is not the case. She can just go and fuck up the White Tower to no end, guided by her evil, minder, handler, whatever, Alviaran. But still, suddenly, that also vaunted terrible, slow, checks and balances of the Hall, of the sitters, there's no inhibition whatsoever. It does not do the job. And this is where I see the problem with it being, anti-democratic. So we have all these rules. If we observe them, we will never find out the truth. We'll never be able to actually get things done. So we need someone with absolute power who is not willing to actually make painful decisions, like torturing people. And it works, because what this democracy does, or at least Aes Sedai democracy does, is it holds back the good ones, and it does nothing. It's ineffectual against the bad leaders. So why not just, give it up and hope that we find our chosen one who will be our main leader? And this is, it's a problem. It's a huge problem. And I think it mirrors a larger concern for the overall Wheel of Time, that I'll just mention it here. I'll obviously can't judge for the rest of the series, but I feel that the overall problem with Wheel of Time is its message. And its message is, evil is real. It is a personal evil. It is a supernatural being, that being the Dark One, devil, whatever you want to call him. That evil is real, and it will destroy everyone. What we also learn is that all the problems our heroes have are mostly caused by humans disagreeing, squabbling over all kinds of minute human problems, instead of banding together and facing that evil one. Now, the problem is that banding together will always be submission to our chosen one, Bob, in which case, in our case, the Dragon Reborn, Randall Thor, and all of that crap. And it gets mirrored all the time. It's like, people need to be led. People left on their own will squabble for petty things all the fucking time. And, need to be brought to heel under our one savior who can then destroy the the personal evil of Satan at the end of days. And I know this series is supposed to play with all kinds of mythologies. Fine. But this one hits a bit too close, because there's no questioning, so far at least, that I can see, of the underlying truth being the truth. And because we need that one savior to save us, that one figure, that hero figure to save us. Implicit in that is that we can't get it done on our own. And that is a certain lack of faith in human nature, which yeah, it's so easy to have, but it's that cynical, conservative faith of it, right? Lack of faith, because at the end of the day, it is the idea of people trying to communicate and not people just dominating each other that leads to that. It's why Cadwayne gets away with all her fuckery. It's why Rand can just like do nothing wrong so far. Yeah, he sometimes makes mistakes through oversight, but he's still the good guy. And it's when people try to, not do what he tells them that they get into all kinds of troubles. That's the underlying message. It gets mirrored on like a microscopic level, so to speak, microcosmic level in the White Tower, where once again, following the Sitters of the Aja will not work because for some reason, the Hall doesn't have any power over Elida, even though we got told that she's a weak Amerlin because she had to make all these compromises to get even elected by the by the Hall. So they're unable to do that until they leave behind customs, rules, and so forth, because who needs those fucking moral rules? They will only hinder us. And that's a problem. That's a huge fucking problem right there. And yes, I'm not saying that Robert Jordan is consciously writing a treatise on why absolute monarchy, enlightened absolutism is the only option we have as humanity. This is not a political treaty, I know, but because it shows up in all these different aspects of the book, ever again and again and again, it shows a specific mindset in the author and in a lot of other authors and a lot of other people who agree with that kind of stuff, and it's frightening in a way that we have that like message at the core of the book, and everyone is like, yeah, well, it's a great story. It's like, no, it's not. It sucks because the message is terrible. All right, onward to the Elaine stuff. So we see Elaine struggling with, all kinds of facets of being daughter heir, trying to actually take over the country. She has to do it on her own because Rand cannot just do that because Andor doesn't work like that. Andor is the only good kingdom in this fucking mess because everyone is strong-willed, independent, and they make, they're all good white Anglo-Saxon Protestants at heart. Andoran Protestants. You know what I mean. The old problem. So she's struggling with all of that. She'll probably ultimately overcome all of that because, of course she will. And what happens then is, right in the middle of that struggle, what's her name? One of the wise ones shows up to drag her to that magic sister ritual. And what we get is a fairly long description of Aviendha and Elaine being naked, because of course they have to be naked. I mean, yeah, there's a reason given there, I know, but it is fairly interesting to look at how many times in these books it is important to mention that women are naked or undress again. And that they should actually be happy with the fact that men look at them. It's like, no, that's not how that works. If you undress consciously in front of someone else who you have enough trust and want to be admired by them, that is totally fine. The fact that you do that, or are forced to do it in this case, because obviously Elaine is forced to do so, commanded to do so, and there's a dude looking at your ass, you should not say, yeah, but at least I seem to have like a really, hot ass. No, you should go and say like, motherfucker, that's a breach of consent and personal space. Get the fuck out of here. That's what you should do. And other women telling you, no, you should be proud that he's looking at your ass. No, don't do that. Don't tell me that all the time, because all it does is makes you, the writer, come across as a slightly, overtly horny old man with a focus on on backsides, which, fine. You're king, Bobby J, I don't mind. But it shows up suspiciously often. The actual ceremony is not too bad. The idea of, like, looking at the way they have to think about each other's strengths and weaknesses, wishes, and all of that stuff, I'm fine with that. That's pretty cool. It's also a fairly good way, for once, with Bobby J to establish character, because it gives him, with his like tell don't show way of doing stuff, a way to state how those characters, what those characters' strengths and weaknesses are, and that's pretty good. The way it has to obviously end up in like a naked wrestling match, or well, at least people knocking each other around nakedly on the floor. Yeah, I guess, I've said it too many times at this point, but it bears repeating that every single time something comes up, it will end up with with at least one woman being naked and physical blows being exchanged. That's just how it is, how every single problem in this book will be solved. Every single one. At least when we're not concerned. They can't be killed, so that's what happens. And we get a bit of an embarrassing rebirth, magical rebirth kind of scene. Oh well, whatever. I've seen worse stuff in these books written by Bobby J. It's just that it has to be naked people punching each other on the floor. Fuck's sake, Bobby J. But there we are. Now they are magical sisters, and they can both go and get Rand, which I guess is their next order of business. So yeah, there we are. Let's look at the next bit. Tovanne, I forgot her fucking name, is now a slave of Logain because he bonded her. You remember? By kissing her, and now she is under his entire will. And this is something that I find very interesting, because apparently if a man bonds a woman by magic, they have to do everything they command. I don't see it working the same way for Rand and what's her name, Alana. No, Rand goes about, does whatever the fuck he wants, and Alana cries. Now Tovanne is bonded by Logain, and he tells her, "Don't touch my papers," and she can't touch his papers. I mean, how does that work in those two ways? Now, obviously, it gets not explained, but you could explain it through saying that, yes, of course, because Sidene is different than Sidar, and dick magic is different than pussy magic, it obviously means that the bonding will work differently if someone with dick magic bonds you than the other way around, whether you want that or not. And it's way more dominant, so you have to, obviously. And that's where the problem lies, because it basically once again comes down to, yes, that guy mind raped her, and now she's under his control. And the other one is now also under his physical control, and, well, she's fucking him for information, which is fine, but there's still, I don't know, it's just weird. The overall setup for that scene, however, is obviously to show that there are factions within the Black Tower as well, between Logain on the one side, Mazrim Taim on the other side. And the important bit there is that, I'm not quite sure, maybe I overlooked that in the last book, but we come back, Mazrim Taim puts those names down as possible traitors that need to be hunted down. And he puts Dahmer Flynn and two others whose name I've already forgotten, because who fucking cares? The good guys, the good Ashaman, on that board as well. And I assume there's two options. Either Mazrim Taim wants to get rid of those because of the power struggle, or he truly believes they are evil and Rand told him and I've forgotten. I doubt the latter, though, because my brain may be fucked, but not that fucked. Well, as I said, mostly I'm pissed off about that. Then there's an interesting thing that, yes, there seemed to have been an attempt on Tovanne's life, because she was the official nominal leader of that group, and of course that was done by beating her, because if you really want to kill that woman, just put a knife in, fuck's sake. Don't go women can only be beaten in these books. So yeah, that establishment makes a lot of sense. I get it. We're done. the Rand Min thing is, well, Rand is running around. We get established that he still, gets to puke when he uses magic. And he's collecting books and stuff. And we see that one of the inventors is building a steam engine, which you obviously knew from like an earlier chapter. But yeah, we can see that technology is slowly being introduced into the world, which I have to agree is something that I personally like. We'll have to talk about the realism of the way it is done, but the general idea of adding steam engines and shit to this world is a cool one. Just like flying dinosaurs. I'm just saying. It's already cool. Obviously, the fact that, like, apparently in 3,000 years nothing happened, and then suddenly Rand snaps his fingers, and suddenly it goes, like, boom, and technological explosions happen all over the place, is unrealistic as fuck, but, Bobby J and world building are not best friends. He has great ideas, but when it comes to actually making all the craps, consistent, he fails miserably. So yeah, anyway, Rand moves off and is like, we're with Min, and goes and is like, you know what? We'll do the thing. We'll cleanse Sidene. Alright, let's move to, what's his name? Perrin. So Perrin runs around, goes back, finds out, gets mad. All good. Understandable. There's almost like there's like a fight standoff kind of thing going down because, different political factions in his place, all fine. He behaves irrational because his wife is lost, also fine. What he does is he walks out and he finds our stalker dude, Talonvor, standing there and gazing into nothingness because he so loves that woman that he's stalking. And later on, when he rides away to do that, to look for her and whatnot, everyone is like, yeah, he loves her, so that's totally fine. And it's that piece that really pisses me off, apart from, like, it, being justifying stalking within the narrative, the fact that it's also absolutely approved by Linny and Basil Gill and everyone else. Even Perrin's like, yeah, of course, he's got a right to stalk her because he's in love. It's like, no, fucker, you don't. It's not about that. That's not how that works. But, I'm repeating myself at this point. It just is fucked up because some people don't understand consent. Alright, more of that stuff. We switch to Fail, who obviously has to be undressed. Of course he does. Run through the snow and then later on be carried by a man and spanked. And yes, we get a note of her thought later on when she realizes that she starts to begin to like being smacked by that guy. And I'm like, really though? There's more going down there, but one thing that I found really problematic, I want to point out, is that she's, talking about her relationship with Perrin, and the fact that Perrin starts, yelling at her, and that she tends to appreciate that, and the fact that she had thrown stuff at him, and even drawn blood a couple of times, and that's totally normal for a fulfilling relationship. And I'm saying, no, it's not. That's domestic fucking violence. And the fact that this is held up to us as a model fucking relationship tells volumes, fucking volumes, and it should not be that way. No, throwing shit at people is not having a disagreement in a relationship. It's dangerous and it's domestic violence. I know arguments can get heated, but that goes fucking beyond it, so don't do that crap. It's always something more that, boils out of it, and it's just... I'm not trying to give this the worst possible reading I can, but it's hard to overlook these kind of things. Anyway, apart from that, we get, more, after that, we get, more of the usual, everyone's behaving like dickheads, Savannah is ignorant, power-hungry, and obviously has to, drag around all her jewelry and shit because she, as a savage, does not understand how, actual beauty works because she doesn't understand style. She's gaudy and stuff. We know that. And we have we see the power struggle within the wise one, with the wise ones, and we have Galena planning to get that second oath rod to actually get rid of everything, and that's that's all fine. I'm good with that. Plot wise, it just lays some groundwork for the future. We're good there. Apart from those thoughts on the relationship and all of that stuff, the rest of it is solid. It leads to the future. It's not like something that I like to read in the future, because I can just see that everything, all the coming Fael chapters will be mostly about humiliating Fael, because until now she kind of got away with being actually a strong character, and it's time for her to get some well-earned humiliation and fucking like it. Which she already starts, so there we are. Okay, final bits. Perrin, after doing this dumb thing, waiting for Raphael, wakes up in Berline's tent, and everyone gives the impression that he has already started sleeping with Berline. And everyone believes those rumors, which are put about by Berlin. And that repeats that whole idea that we seen earlier with, I think, Matt and the Queen, Thailand, which is basically that dumb, everyone will believe a woman if they make false accusations against a man where sex is concerned. Whether it's, calling them rapist against, calling them accusing them of sexual assault, or whether it is implying that, they are cheating on their wives or whatever, everyone will always believe them. Poor, straight-laced, morally upstanding men will always suffer from women's gossip. That's, well, especially when it kind of comes closer to the sexual assault accusations kind of thing. That's an absolutely horrific message to put out there. An absolutely horrific message to put out there, because it causes so much fucking damage all over the place, and I'm not very happy about that. In fact, I'm really, really pissed off about it. So there's sort of where that ends. We need to talk about Massima at some point. Well, maybe that point's not really today. What I like to point out, though, is that as a depiction of, say, a millennial Christian movement, it shows Robert Jordan's absolute lack of understanding, where either mental health or religious fervor or religious movements are concerned. I don't know. There's always that idea of those millennial movements running around about the year 1000, probably also around the year 1600, but your Fra Dolcinos and whatnot, claiming that all bonds have been broken. They're waiting for the savior to bring return as soon as possible. Property being terrible, and to blame all of that at the end of the day on the madness of one specific person, or even on what you might call mass hysteria, is under complex, to put it mildly. And Robert Jordan goes with just that one guy just got mad. And I wouldn't even be as too surprised if you find out that it's more than just Massima having some religious awakening, but him being guided, manipulated, or whatever by either actual, in some way palpable madness, physically present madness, or actually being touched by the Dark One. Both of which I think are a huge problem, because, all the implications that come from that. For now, however, we're stuck with it. We'll see where it goes in the next couple of chapters, whether it all shows up. I mean, there's still Matt to be talked about, whom we haven't seen in, an entire book at this point. We also haven't heard from Loyal in, ages. And all kinds of other places, so we'll see where all of that is going. I'll leave it at that for now. Despite all I've just said, this is by far not the worst Wheel of Time thing so far. I don't mind the slower pace yet. I don't mind. It doesn't feel like the so-called slog yet, is what I'm saying. We'll see. I'll give this 3 more videos, and then I'll be done with it, and then we'll move on to whatever book 10 is. Crossroads of Twilight, possibly. We will see. Anyway, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.